The water stain on the ceiling looked like a map of nowhere. I'd been staring at it for 3 hours, lying on the pull-out couch in Unit 412 of the Parkview Apartments on Danforth Avenue. Parkview was a generous name. The only view was the Tim Hortons parking lot across the street and a liquor store with bars on the windows. I was 68 years old, 3 years out of the Collins Bay Institution, and I'd killed my wife. That's what my son believed, anyway. That's what the jury believed. That's what all of Toronto believed when they saw the news. Prominent surgeon's wife dies in collision. Husband charged with impaired driving, causing death. The apartment was cold. February in Toronto meant the landlord kept the heat at exactly the minimum required by law. I pulled the scratchy blanket up to my chin and listened to my neighbor's television through the wall. A game show. Applause. Someone had just won something. I hadn't won anything in a very long time. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I almost didn't answer. Nobody called me anymore. The people who used to know Dr. Robert Harrison, the cardiovascular surgeon who'd performed over 2,000 successful operations, who'd taught at the University of Toronto, who'd lived in a house in Rosedale worth $3 million. Those people had stopped calling when the police cruisers showed up at my door. But I answered. Because when you have nothing, even wrong numbers feel like connection. Is this Robert Harrison? A woman's voice. Professional. Careful pronunciation. Speaking. Mr. Harrison, this is Diane Park from Whitmore and Associates. We're a law firm in the financial district. I'm calling regarding the estate of Jennifer Harrison. My dead wife's name. I sat up. The blanket fell away. I don't understand, I said. There's a matter that requires your presence. The final reading of Mrs. Harrison's will has been scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. We're located at First Canadian Place, 48th floor, Suite 4800. Will you be able to attend? Why would I? I stopped. I was convicted of killing her. I understand, Mr. Harrison. However, you're named in the will. Your attendance is requested. If you have any questions, you can reach me at this number. She hung up before I could say anything else. I stared at the phone. Jennifer had been dead for 5 years. I'd spent 3 of those years in prison. When I got out, there was nothing. No house, no money, no son. Michael had made sure of that. He'd sold the house, liquidated what he could, and never spoke to me again. The last time I'd seen him was in the courtroom, sitting behind the Crown prosecutor, his face carved from stone. He was 28 now, probably 31. I'd lost track of time. I tried to go back to sleep, but the water stain kept looking like a map of all the places I'd never go, all the rooms I'd never see again. The operating theater where I used to hold human hearts in my hands. The kitchen where Jennifer would make her terrible coffee and laugh when I complained about it. Michael's bedroom, which still had glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, even when he was 17. All of it was gone, but Thursday came anyway. I took the TTC from Donlan Station. The subway was crowded with the afternoon rush. I stood near the door, holding the metal pole, dressed in the only suit I owned. I'd bought it at a Salvation Army on Queen Street. The cuffs were frayed, and it smelled like mothballs. But it was better than the jeans and flannel shirt I wore to my dishwashing job at a restaurant in Greektown. First Canadian Place was a tower of glass and steel, the tallest building in Toronto. I used to work across the street at St. Michael's Hospital. I used to park my Audi in the underground lot and take the elevator up to the surgical floor. I used to be someone. Now I was a man in a second-hand suit, giving my name to a security guard who looked at me like I might steal something. 48th floor, he said, pointing to the elevator bank. The elevator was full of people in expensive clothes. I stood in the corner and watched the numbers climb. 30, 40, 45. Nobody looked at me. I was invisible. That was fine. I'd been invisible for 3 years. The law firm was all marble and dark wood. The reception desk looked like something from a 5-star hotel. The receptionist was young, pretty, wearing a headset. Robert Harrison, I said. I have an appointment with Diane Park. She looked at her computer screen. Her expression changed slightly. Not much. Just enough to let me know she'd read something about me. Have a seat, Mr. Harrison. Someone will be with you shortly. The waiting area had leather chairs and magazines about money. Forbes, The Economist, Bay Street Monthly. I didn't sit. I stood by the window and looked out at Toronto, the CN Tower, the Rogers Centre, Lake Ontario in the distance, grey and cold. I used to take Michael to Blue Jays games. He'd eat hot dogs and spill mustard on his shirt, and I'd pretend to be annoyed. Jennifer would laugh at both of us. Mr. Harrison? I turned. A woman in her 40s, dark hair pulled back, wearing a charcoal suit. Diane Park. Thank you for coming, she said. Please, follow me. The conference room was at the end of a long hallway. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the financial district. Bay Street stretched out below like a river of money. I used to belong to this world. Now I felt like an intruder. Coffee? Water? Diane asked. No, thank you. She gestured to a chair. I sat. The leather was soft and new. Everything in this room was soft and new. Everything except me. We're waiting for one more person, Diane said. She opened a folder on the table. I could see documents inside, but I couldn't read them from where I sat. The door opened behind me. I didn't need to turn around. I knew the sound of those footsteps. I'd heard them for 31 years, first as a toddler learning to walk, then as a teenager coming home past curfew, then as a young man in dress shoes, angry and righteous. What the hell is he doing here? Michael. I turned in my chair. He stood in the doorway, 6 feet tall, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. He had Jennifer's eyes. Dark, sharp, unforgiving. Mr. Harrison, Diane said calmly. Please, take a seat. I know this is unexpected, but he killed my mother. Michael's voice was cold, controlled, the voice of a man who'd spent years learning not to scream. He doesn't belong here. Whatever my mother left, he has no right to it. Michael, I said quietly. Don't, he held up one hand. Don't say my name. You lost that right when you got behind the wheel drunk and drove Mom into a goddamn pole. The memory came back, the way it always did, sharp and bright and terrible. The sound of metal crumpling, glass breaking, Jennifer's scream cutting off mid-breath. I closed my eyes. Mr. Harrison, Diane said to Michael, I understand your anger, but I'm asking you, as a professional courtesy, to sit down and allow me to complete the reading of your mother's will. If you still want to leave after that, I won't stop you. Michael stared at me for a long moment. I could see the hatred in his eyes. It was pure and clean and absolute. Then he sat down at the opposite end of the table, as far from me as possible. Diane cleared her throat. Thank you both. This is the last will and testament of Jennifer Elizabeth Harrison, dated March 18th, 5 years ago, 2 months before her death. She opened the folder and began to read. It was standard at first. Jennifer's assets. The house on Dunbar Road sold. Her investment portfolio approximately $4.2 million. Her personal effects. Her jewelry. Her art collection. To my son, Michael James Harrison, Diane read. I leave the entirety of my estate, with the exception of the items specified below. Michael didn't react. He'd probably expected this. Of course he'd get everything. I was a convicted felon, a drunk driver, a killer. However, Diane continued, there is an attached letter from Mrs. Harrison, addressed to both of you. She requested that it be read aloud in your presence. She pulled out a single sheet of paper. Her hands were steady, but I noticed she glanced at Michael before she started reading, preparing him. Michael and Robert, Diane read. If you're hearing this, I'm dead, and I need to tell you the truth before I lose my courage. The room went still. The night of the accident, I was driving. Not Robert. I'd been drinking at the hospital fundraiser, 3 glasses of wine, maybe 4. I don't remember. Robert tried to take the keys from me, but I insisted. I always insisted. I always thought I knew better. Michael's face had gone pale. We were arguing in the car about something stupid. Money. Robert's hours at the hospital. I don't even remember what started it. I was going too fast. The roads were wet. I lost control on the curve near Mount Pleasant Cemetery. I hit the utility pole on the driver's side. My side. My hands were shaking. I gripped the arms of the chair. I should have died. The doctors said it was a miracle I survived. But Robert was in the passenger seat. He was fine. Just a broken arm. And when the police came to the hospital, when they asked what happened, Robert said he'd been driving. He said he'd had too much to drink. He said it was his fault. Diane paused, took a breath, kept reading. I let him say it. God forgive me. I let him take the blame. Because I was a Crown prosecutor. Because my career would have been over. Because I was a coward. Robert went to prison for 3 years. He lost his medical license. He lost everything. And I let him. I told myself I'd make it right someday. I told myself I'd tell the truth when the time was right. But I was sick. Cancer. Stage 4. And I realized there would never be a right time. There would only be too late. Michael stood up so fast his chair fell backward. No, he said. No, this is bullshit. She wouldn't. Michael, Diane continued reading, her voice steady. Your father loved me. He loved you. And when he took the blame, it wasn't because he was drunk. It was because he wanted to protect our family. He thought if I went to prison, you'd lose both parents. He thought if he went to prison, at least you'd have me. And your future. And the house. And everything he'd built. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. He made a sacrifice I can never repay. And I compounded it by letting you believe the worst of him. By letting you hate him. By not telling you the truth. I'm so sorry, Michael. I'm so sorry, Robert. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm asking for it anyway. This is my confession. This is my truth. Diane set down the letter. There's more, she said quietly. Mrs. Harrison left instructions for me to present evidence that corroborates her statement. Police reports with inconsistencies. Medical records showing Mrs. Harrison's injuries were consistent with driver-side impact. And a flash drive containing a video she recorded 2 months before her death, repeating this confession. Michael was staring at me. His mouth was open. His eyes were red. You, his voice cracked. You went to prison for her? I couldn't speak. If I spoke, I would break. She killed herself, Michael whispered. The cancer. The guilt. That's why she overdosed on the painkillers. That's why the doctors said it was accidental, but I knew she'd done it on purpose. Mr. Harrison, Diane said, addressing Michael. There's one more thing. Your mother changed her will after her diagnosis. The $4.2 million she left behind. She specified that it should be divided. $2.1 million to you. $2.1 million to your father. Michael shook his head. He can't. He was convicted. Doesn't that? The conviction was based on a guilty plea. With this new evidence, your father can apply for an exoneration. It won't be immediate, but it's possible. Mrs. Harrison worked with a legal team to prepare the paperwork. It's all here. She pushed a thick envelope across the table toward me. I stared at it, at the envelope, at the possibility it represented, at the life I might get back, the name, the dignity, the money that could buy me more than a water-stained ceiling. Why didn't you tell me? Michael's voice was small now, broken. Dad, why didn't you tell me the truth? I looked at my son, really looked at him for the first time in 5 years. Because you needed to believe in her, I said. She was your mother. She was brilliant and strong, and she made one terrible mistake. If I'd told you the truth, you would have spent the rest of your life hating her instead of hating me. And I could carry that. She couldn't. Michael's face crumpled. He put his hands over his eyes. I said, Jesus, Dad. I said such horrible things to you. At the trial. After. I told you I hoped you'd rot in prison. I told you I never wanted to see you again. I told you, I know. How can you? He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. How can you even look at me? Because you're my son. My voice was steady now, calmer than I'd been in years. And I'd do it all again, if it meant protecting you. Michael stood up, walked around the table, stopped in front of me. And then he did something I never expected. He knelt down, put his arms around me, and sobbed into my shoulder like he was 5 years old again. I held him. I held my son. And for the first time in 5 years, something inside me that had been frozen began to thaw. Diane Park quietly left the room, gave us privacy. We stayed like that for a long time, long enough for the sun to move across the sky and throw new shadows on the floor, long enough for Michael to say, "I'm sorry" about 100 times, long enough for me to say, "I forgive you" about 101. Eventually, we sat back down. Michael wiped his eyes with his sleeve. He looked younger now, smaller, like the weight he'd been carrying had finally been lifted. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "With the money. With everything." I thought about it. The apartment on Danforth Avenue. The dishwashing job. The water stain that looked like a map of nowhere. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "It's been a long time since I got to choose." Michael nodded. Then he said, very quietly, "I sold the house. After Mom died. I couldn't live there anymore, but I kept some things. Your things. I have boxes in storage. Your medical books. Your diplomas. Photos. I told myself I was keeping them, in case you got out and wanted them back. But really, I couldn't throw them away. Thank you. There's something else." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. "Mom left this for you. Diane gave it to me while you were in prison, but I wasn't ready. But now," he pushed the box across the table. I opened it. Inside was a wedding ring. Gold. Simple. The one I'd given Jennifer 33 years ago when we got married at City Hall because we were broke medical students who couldn't afford anything fancy. And underneath the ring was a note in Jennifer's handwriting. "I'm sorry I couldn't be strong enough to tell the truth while I was alive. But maybe I can be brave enough in death. I love you. I always did, even when I was too broken to show it. Jay." I picked up the ring. It was warm from being in Michael's pocket. I slipped it onto my finger. It still fit. Michael was watching me. "Do you still love her?" he asked. "After everything she did?" I looked at my son, at his mother's eyes. "Yes," I said. "Love doesn't stop because someone makes a terrible mistake. It just gets more complicated." We left the law firm together, took the elevator down 48 floors, walked out into the February cold. Toronto was beginning its evening transformation. Office workers heading home, streetlights coming on. The city looked different than it had that morning. Or maybe I looked different. Michael stopped on the corner of King and Bay. "I have a place in Liberty Village," he said. 2 bedrooms. The second one's empty. If you needed somewhere to stay while you figure things out." I looked at my son, the man he'd become, the person he'd built himself into despite everything. "I'd like that," I said. We took the streetcar west, sat side by side. Didn't talk much, didn't need to. Sometimes silence is its own kind of conversation. Michael's apartment was modern, clean lines, big windows, a view of the lake. He showed me the second bedroom. It had a real bed, a closet, no water stains on the ceiling. "I'll get you a key tomorrow," he said, "and we can go to the storage unit, get your stuff." "Michael." "Yeah? Thank you." He nodded, looked away. "I have 3 years to make up for. A lot more, actually. But I figure 3 years of being a complete asshole to my dad is a good place to start." That night, I lay in a real bed for the first time in 3 years. The sheets smelled like detergent. The pillow was soft. Through the wall, I could hear Michael moving around in his room. The sound of another person living their life. It was comforting. I thought about Jennifer. About the woman she'd been, the mistakes she'd made, the weight of guilt she'd carried until it killed her. I thought about the night of the accident. The rain on the windshield, her hands on the wheel, the way she'd been crying and driving and not seeing the curve until it was too late. The moment when I'd had to decide whether to tell the truth or tell a lie that would save her. I'd chosen the lie. And it had cost me everything. But looking at it now, from this bedroom in Liberty Village, with my son sleeping in the next room, I realized something. It hadn't cost me everything. It had cost me 3 years, and my career, and my reputation. But it hadn't cost me my son. Not forever. Just for a little while. And maybe that was worth it. 3 weeks later, Diane Park called again. "Mr. Harrison, I have some news. The Crown Attorney's Office has reviewed the evidence. They're willing to vacate your conviction. It'll take a few more months to finalize, but it's going to happen. You'll be exonerated." I thanked her, hung up, stood in Michael's kitchen and looked out at the lake. Michael came home from work an hour later. I told him the news. He hugged me. We ordered pizza, sat on his couch, and watch the Raptors lose to the Celtics. When you get your license back, Michael said during halftime, are you going to do surgery again? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I'll do something else. I've been thinking about teaching, or research, or maybe just taking some time to figure out who I am now. Who are you now? I thought about it. Someone who's still learning. Michael smiled. That's pretty good, Dad. The money came through in April. $2.1 million deposited into an account Diane helped me set up. More money than I'd ever seen. More money than I needed. I gave Michael half of it. Dad, no. Yes. Your mother wanted you to have it, and I want you to have it. Use it for whatever you need. A house, a wedding, kids, whatever comes next. What are you going to do with yours? I'd been thinking about that. There's a medical charity that provides free surgeries for people who can't afford them. I'm going to make a donation. Set up a fund. Maybe volunteer if they'll have me. Mom would have liked that. Maybe. In July, my conviction was formally vacated. It made the news. Surgeon exonerated after late wife's deathbed confession. The reporters called me. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. The truth was out. That was enough. Michael and I went to Jennifer's grave that day, brought flowers, stood in the summer heat and looked at her headstone. Jennifer Elizabeth Harrison, beloved mother and wife, 1962 to 2019. Should we change it? Michael asked. Add something about the truth? No, I said. Let her rest. We stood there a while longer. Then we went home. That night, I sat in my bedroom in Michael's apartment and wrote this all down. Every word, every memory, every moment, from the water-stained ceiling to this very sentence. Because I need Michael to know something. I need him to know that I don't blame his mother, that I don't regret the choice I made, that love is more complicated than right and wrong, and sometimes the biggest sacrifices are the ones nobody sees. I need him to know that he didn't fail me by believing his mother, that he didn't fail me by hating me, that all of that was exactly what was supposed to happen, because it meant Jennifer's last years weren't spent in prison, and it meant Michael got to keep his mother as someone to admire instead of someone to resent. But mostly, I need him to know this. 2 months ago, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4, the same thing that killed Jennifer. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. I haven't told Michael yet. I will, soon. But first, I needed to write this. I needed him to have the whole story. Not just the parts he witnessed, but the parts he didn't see. The thoughts I had in that prison cell. The letters I wrote but never sent. The moments when I almost broke but didn't, because I knew he needed me to be strong. This is my will, Michael. My last testament. Not the legal kind. Diane Park is handling that. This is the other kind. The kind that tells you what I believe, what I hope for you, what I want you to carry forward. I want you to know that being your father was the greatest honor of my life. Every moment, even the hard ones, especially the hard ones. I want you to know that your mother loved you with every fiber of her being. She made a terrible mistake, but it doesn't define her. Don't let it define your memory of her. I want you to know that you're going to be okay. You're strong and kind and brilliant. You're going to build a beautiful life. And someday, when you have children of your own, you're going to understand why parents make the choices they make, why we lie sometimes, why we sacrifice, why we take the fall. The money is yours. All of it. The $1 million I kept, plus whatever's left. Use it well. Use it to help people. Use it to build something that matters. And if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. It means the cancer won. It means we had our time together, and I hope it was enough. I hope you know that I forgave you before you even apologized. I hope you know that I'd do it all again. I hope you know that I love you. Always. Dad. I sealed the envelope. Gave it to Diane Park with instructions to deliver it to Michael after I'm gone. She didn't ask questions. Lawyers are good at that. Then I went home to Liberty Village. Made dinner with Michael. Watched another basketball game. Laughed at his terrible jokes. Lived my life like I had all the time in the world, even though I knew the truth. The truth is, none of us have all the time in the world. We just have the time we're given. And what matters isn't how much time we get, but what we do with it. I chose to love my son. I chose to protect my wife. I chose to carry the weight so they wouldn't have to. And when I close my eyes for the last time, I'll close them knowing I made the right choice. Because that's what fathers do. We carry the weight, and we never, ever let go.